Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. Good evening. And first of all, it's a huge um, honor and a matter of great pleasure to hold Iran in Pakistan this time, and to be a part of it is a it's like a dream come true for me. So thank you so much for this huge honor. The Today my topic is very simple, but it is an important one. It is based upon the predisposing factor. Let me just share the screen, please. Yes, okay. Yes, it is on the predisposing factors of head and spinal injuries in Pakistan, which is a developing country, and it's a comparison between the slums and the urban area. The aims and objectives of the study are very simple. It is to basically study the predisposing factors of head and spinal injury in a developing country like ours, and to basically compare those factors of injury in rural and urban part of the country. It is basically to address these factors in order to make a proper strategy to prevent these injuries, and that is only possible when you increase the awareness level of the public. So why we needed a study? The problem was 80% of our population resides in the rural area, and most of the injuries are unfortunately involves the age group, which is vocationally very important. This is a young age group between the 20 to 40 years of age, most commonly amongst the male, and it leads to, especially those spinal injuries, lead to a high level of morbidity, making them incapable of doing anything, and it increases a lot of psychological trauma as well among those people who are being injured and their caregivers. So it was so important to study the epidemiology in order to nip the evil at the bud by primary prevention. And it is only, as I said, it was possible by public awareness. The study was conducted on a total 180 patients from January 2016 till 31st December 2017 at our hospital, and the distribution and relationship of TBI was assessed with the gender, age, type of trauma, etc. So what we concluded was the majority, the number one cause of injury was a bike accident. There was a bike versus bike, and most of those were young boys. Many of them were out of thrill and etc. The second cause was fall from roofs, and that was mostly from the rural area. The third one was a Chinchi, a local three-wheeled vehicle. It is a Chinchi rickshaw. It was the third most common cause. The fourth common cause was the car crash, and it was more common in the urban area as expected. The other cause was for pedestrian injuries. The rest of them was fall from stairs and miscellaneous cause like local fighting, domestic violence, home accidents was among just 4%. So what we studied that the incidence of injury is the more in rural area. You can see here in the graph that about 57% of the patients which we receive in the uh, ER are from the rural area as compared to the urban area, which is about 31%, despite the fact that there are more cars in the urban area. When we compare it, we can see that the incidence of traumatic brain injury is slightly more in the rural area, while the spinal injuries are a bit more common in the urban area. It is basically, I guess, because it is what we have considered, it's because a car crash is more common in the urban area, so probably that's why the spinal injuries are more common, slightly more common in the urban area, while in the traumatic brain injuries are more common in the rural area because many of them are due to falls and roofs and etc. So the mortality rate is obviously more in the in head injury group, and disability is comparable, a slight difference just of 4% between the spinal and the head injury group. So what we have seen is incidence of head and spinal injuries higher in the rural area as compared to the urban area, and it is basically because there is a lot of difference, a discrepancy in the education level and the level of awareness between these two populations. And in if you go in the slums, you will see that there are houses without any railing, and children, small babies, are standing in the over the roofs without any railing. They've got stairs without any railings, and their roofs are, they are not very proper roofs. So there, if there is a heavy rainfall, they tend to fall down. So there is a lot of problems in the rural area because of their lifestyle and because of lack of awareness. Proportion of spinal injury is higher in the urban area, as I have already said, and the most common cause of head and spinal injury were the motorbike accidents, and we have discussed that already. So, what we have seen, it is because of the lack of awareness. People overload those vehicles with more passengers than the vehicle can bear. If you go to the slums, you will see that in one motorbike, about five persons are riding just one motorbike, and that too without helmets on, and many of them are being driven by young boys who do not have even a lot of experience in driving. So there's a lot of problem there. So it is basically poorly developed roads as well in the rural area. Many of them are not proper at all, and it is more rushy. The other factors was the presence of cows and other stray animals that are freely crossing the roads in the rural areas, and they are never being harnessed or being trained to do so, to do a proper fire. The fall from stairs group has a more incidence in rural area where again people do not protect the stairs with the railing, and there is a high use of bamboo and rope ladders as well. And most of the injuries from unsafe stairs unfortunately involve unsupervised young children who already have difficulty in climbing the stairs. So RTAs in the urban areas are basically involve the younger age group, the teenage RTAs, because there's a trend of using motorbikes, heavy motorbikes as well, and there's a trend of using bike racing, one wheeling, over speeding, and there's also a lot of incidents of addiction, thrill, and social media challenges such as the Kiki challenge. We must have heard of, we have all have heard of it. So among these things, these are the very important part of the teenage behavior. In car crashes, huge number of cars on roads, many of the people are not well trained for them. Many of the young people are driving the cars, and it is most of them are have a lot of peer pressure because that class fellow has a car to drive. That one said that you do not drive, so you are a lame person. So there's a lot of peer pressure, and younger people and underage drivers are poorly trained and very fast as well. Pedestrian injuries, both of the aforementioned are predisposing factor of pedestrian injuries as well as, and there is another thing that we do in Pakistan. There is a lot of jaywalking, and people do not follow rules. There are not proper rules, and for pedestrians there is no proper lane. So we conclude that the study suggests that the level of awareness has a great role in the incidence of head and spinal injuries, as indicated by the difference of incidence and cause between a better educated urban area and less educated rural area. The factors leading to an increased incidence of traumatic brain and spinal injury in rural areas are potentially preventable. Just if we address the public and increase their level of awareness, these are potentially preventable with just increasing the level of awareness. So the basic level of awareness has a pivotal role in the incidence of these injuries, and people need to be educated. And what we can do, we need to arrange awareness programs and propagate the message through dedicated workers, such as the health workers who are already working there. We can just keep them and train them to inspect the houses to see if they are safe for children and for adults, if they are properly lined, properly railed well. We can also use the media, to the television, radio, newspaper, pamphlets to spread awareness level. And it is very important to address the school children. We should arrange some seminars in the schools so that children take interest in it, and also interactive workshops will be very good for this. So safety laws should be implicated in the city. In the rural areas, there should be secure rooftops and stairs. There should be inspection, a routine inspection of the houses to check whether they are secure for living or not. There should be a strict driving test before licensing the drivers, educating the young drivers, allocating lanes for motorbikes and bicycles, and checking the speed limit. We should see even if whether they are overcrowded or not. We should make these precautionary measures a part of the school syllabus and arrange workshops in schools as well. We have noted that after the implication of strict rule of wearing helmets, two bikers per bike, and use of seat belts and prohibition of cell phone use, The incidence of road traffic accident is falling in the urban areas where these rules are being strictly followed. So this is basically, it is a good sign and a motivation of future measures that should be applied and strictly supervised with special care to the rural area. I have another study that has compared the incidence of head and spine injury before and after the application of helmet uh, being a necessary part of driving, and seat belt as a precautionary measure. So we've noticed a decrease in incidence in the urban area where people were forced to use seat belts. So what we need to do is to arrange awareness seminars, special awareness programs in schools, strict law regarding drivers and vehicle licensing, checking the houses for safety measures, including proper stairs and railings, including the media and awareness campaigns. So awareness program can be arranged. Proper education of the youngster regarding that. So think wisely, think worst. Any questions?
Thank you very much,
Yeah.
Dr. Noor.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you. I'm honored.
For raising